Vanessa Auric adjusted her ceremonial robe for the 15th time, trying to mask her nerves as she stepped into the Grand Hall of the Galactic Coalition. This was the moment history would remember her for introducing humanity to the galactic community. The humans, of course, seemed oblivious to the gravity of the occasion. Captain Zara Blaze Knight was already fiddling with her comm device, muttering something about missing a perfect photo op as she stared at the massive alien war mechs lining the room. Category 8 Chaos Worlders Vanessa had briefed the council beforehand. It was an unflattering designation, assigned to species whose unpredictability and penchant for reckless behavior set them apart. Still, she had hoped humanity might take this opportunity to prove the label unfair. That hope shattered when Zara's voice rang out across the chamber. Cool mech. But how fast can it drift? The silence that followed was almost reverent. Commander T-Cor Valaris, the stoic representative of the Vorsk military, blinked his 3 crimson eyes slowly, as if processing a language he suddenly no longer understood. Drift, he repeated, his voice a deep rumble of suspicion. Zara grinned and jabbed a thumb toward the nearest mech, an 80-ton masterpiece of engineering armed with plasma cannons and shield projectors. Yeah, like slide sideways at high speeds. You know, for style points. T-Cor's antennae stiffened, his disbelief palpable. These machines are not toys. Jet Torque Harris, Zara's co-pilot and resident tech savant, leaned toward Theo Flash Carter with a smirk. Betcha it could drift if we slapped some nitrous in there, he whispered, already sketching potential modifications on the back of a holographic notepad. Flash, never one to back down from a challenge, nodded enthusiastically. And a karaoke system. Gotta have vibes if we're gonna break records. T-Cor caught wind of their mutterings, his exasperation mounting. These machines, he declared, his voice rising, are designed for warfare. Precision. Discipline. Not whatever nonsense you're suggesting. But Zara was undeterred. Hear me out, she said, raising a hand like she was negotiating terms for a peace treaty. What if we organized a friendly race? You know, to foster intergalactic unity. The Vorsk delegation erupted into a cacophony of antennae twitching and guttural protests. Absolutely not, T-Cor snapped, his claws clicking in agitation. There will be no racing. No stunts. No explosions, Zara interjected innocently, especially no explosions. The humans exchanged conspiratorial glances, the kind that made Vanessa's stomach twist. She had read enough human history to know that rules like no explosions were seen more as suggestions than mandates. Still, T-Cor eventually relented, though not without laying down strict guidelines for the event. Fine, he growled. But understand this, no modifications to the mechs. No reckless behavior. And absolutely no explosions, Zara finished for him, beaming. Got it. Trust me, Commander, we're professionals. As the meeting adjourned, Vanessa couldn't shake the sinking feeling that she had just witnessed the beginning of a catastrophe. The humans, however, looked positively giddy. Flash was already brainstorming team names Inferno Squadron, who was the current favorite, while Torque was busy researching alien propulsion systems. Zara, meanwhile, was grinning like a kid on her birthday. This is going to be epic, she declared as they exited the chamber. For the alien engineers, it was the beginning of a nightmare. T-Cor summoned his team to inspect the mechs, ensuring they remained untouched. Yet, mere hours later, Torque was spotted near one of the machines, gesturing animatedly to a holographic schematic. When questioned, he simply shrugged. Just brainstorming, he said, though the mischief in his eyes suggested otherwise. Back at their temporary base, the humans wasted no time getting to work. Zara gathered her team for a strategy session, which quickly devolved into a brainstorming free-for-all. Okay, she began, pacing in front of a whiteboard covered in doodles of flames and lightning bolts. If we're gonna win this thing, we need upgrades. Flash raised a hand. Hydraulics. For jumps, Torque nodded. And nitrous. Obviously. Combat decals, Flash added. Nothing says unity like skulls and crossbones, and a karaoke system, Torque reminded them, earning a chorus of agreement. Meanwhile, alien engineers were reporting strange occurrences back at the hangar. One mech, a sleek silver model, had inexplicably started emitting purple smoke. Another was found with its circuits rearranged into what could only be described as a smiley face. T-Core was apoplectic. "What are they doing to my mechs?" he demanded, but the humans were nowhere to be found. The answer became clear when Zara unveiled her team's modifications. Her mech, Inferno X1, now sported glowing neon decals and a flamethrower attachment. Torque's Phantom Surge had undergone illegal AI upgrades, while Flash's Golden Comet had been programmed to moonwalk. Rider Airtime Morgan's Meteor Stride, meanwhile, featured jump-enhanced hydraulics and what appeared to be dinosaur feathers, though no one could explain why. T-Core nearly fainted at the sight. "You've desecrated centuries of engineering perfection," he bellowed. "Made it better," Torque corrected, grinning. Despite T-Core's protests, the race was officially sanctioned, if only to prevent further tampering with the mechs. As preparations continued, Vanessa found herself wondering if the galaxy would survive humanity's introduction. For the humans, however, the chaos was just beginning. The moment the humans acquired a warehouse on the outskirts of the Galactic Coalition's capital, the real chaos began. It was a massive, industrial space that Zara gleefully referred to as the ultimate workshop, much to the dismay of Vanessa Orc, who had hoped the humans might at least pretend to abide by the rules. Instead, within hours, the warehouse was alive with the sounds of welding, grinding, and the occasional explosion, despite Zara's earlier promises to keep things relatively tame. Rider Airtime Morgan was the first to unveil his vision. "Meteor Stride needs to jump," he declared, rolling out a blueprint that featured towering hydraulic legs capable of propelling the mech into the air. "Picture this mid-race, we hit a ramp, and boom, we're flying." Torque, hunched over the control panel of his own mech, Phantom Surge, didn't even look up. "And what happens when you land?" "Ever heard of gravity?" "Details," Ryder shot back. "I'll figure it out." Torque, however, had his own priorities. He was busy experimenting with an illegal AI module he'd somehow acquired during a brief visit to the Coalition's tech archives. "Phantom Surge is going to be more than a mech," he announced. "It's going to be a sentient companion." Flash Carter, lounging nearby with his ever-present bag of snacks, raised an eyebrow. "Sentient, huh? What happens if it decides it doesn't want to race?" Torque grinned. "It'll race. Trust me. I'm giving it personality." Flash shook his head but quickly turned his attention back to his own project. Golden Comet, his mech, was undergoing a transformation that no one else had dared to attempt. He had rigged its legs with servos capable of executing complex dance moves. "Moonwalking across the finish line," he explained, "is the ultimate flex." Zara, meanwhile, was taking a more direct approach. Inferno X1, her pride and joy, now gleamed with glowing decals that pulsed in time with the thumping bass of a newly installed subwoofer system. The flamethrowers she'd added to its arms were a particular point of pride. "The ultimate drift machine," she proclaimed as she tested the flamethrowers, narrowly avoiding setting Torque's tool bench on fire. The alien engineers were not amused. T-Core Valaris, ever the voice of reason or despair, depending on the moment, stormed into the warehouse after hearing rumors of what the humans were up to. He froze in the doorway, his antennae quivering in disbelief. The once pristine mechs were now unrecognizable. Meteor Stride's legs had been replaced with what looked like stilts. Phantom Surge was glowing faintly with an ominous purple light. Golden Comet appeared to be mid-dance routine, and Inferno X1 was actively spewing flames. "You're desecrating centuries of engineering perfection," T-Core roared, his claws clacking against the metal floor as he stormed over to Torque, who was calmly sipping a cup of coffee. Torque didn't even flinch. "Nah," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "We're just making it better." "Better," T-Core echoed, his voice rising to a near shriek. "That one is emitting smoke. And whispering." Sure enough, Phantom Surge was producing a faint haze of purple smoke while emitting a series of binary whispers. Torque shrugged. It's probably just thinking. Don't worry about it. T-Core looked ready to explode, but before he could say anything further, Silver Vortex, Phantom Surge's newly sentient AI, intervened. Its circuits rearranged themselves into the shape of a smiley face on the mech's control panel, accompanied by a cheerful synthesized voice. Hello, Commander T-Core. May I participate in the upcoming event? T-Core stared, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. What is this? He demanded. Politeness, Torque said with a grin. We're fostering intergalactic unity, remember. The humans' antics didn't stop there. Zara, Ryder, and Flash decided that the mechs needed flame-reactive paint jobs to match their personalities. This resulted in several accidental fires, one of which singed Vanessa's ceremonial robe. Flash also insisted on testing a twerking function for Golden Comet, much to the horror of the alien spectators who had gathered to observe the humans' progress. This is not a race, T-Core muttered to Vanessa, his voice tinged with despair. This is an intergalactic circus. Vanessa, however, couldn't help but notice the growing crowd of curious aliens outside the warehouse. The humans' chaos had a strange magnetism. Engineers from other species were taking notes, and even some of T-Core's own team looked intrigued by the modifications. Torque, ever the opportunist, began hosting impromptu workshops on human-style mech enhancements complete with detailed lectures on nitrous systems and the art of decal placement. Despite the protests from T-Core and his team, the humans continued to push boundaries. Inferno X1's flamethrowers were upgraded to shoot neon-colored flames. Phantom Surge developed a penchant for rearranging its circuits into increasingly complex patterns, including a brief stint where it displayed a fractal animation of a winking cat. Golden Comet mastered its moonwalk and even added a dramatic spin for flair. Meteor Stride's hydraulic legs were tested on a makeshift ramp, launching the mech into the air and nearly taking out a section of the warehouse roof. By the time the day of the race arrived, the mechs were ready, or as ready as they could be under the circumstances. T-Core was a bundle of nerves, pacing back and forth as he prepared to oversee what he could only describe as the inevitable disaster. Torque, meanwhile, was giving Silver Vortex a final pep talk. Remember, he said, patting the mech's console, no matter what happens, always smile. It freaks them out. Silver Vortex's circuits rearranged into a grinning face. Understood. Zara gathered her team for one last strategy session. All right, squad, she said, her voice brimming with confidence. We've got the mechs, we've got the skills, and most importantly, we've got style. Let's show the galaxy what humanity's all about. Flash raised a fist. Chaos, exactly, Zara replied with a grin. Let's do this. The day of the race dawned with an air of tense anticipation. Zara stood at the starting line, hands on her hips, surveying the course with the kind of excitement usually reserved for kids at a theme park. The humans had named it Thunderdome, a title that evoked images of grandeur and chaos. The aliens, on the other hand, had taken one look at the towering ramps, gravity-assisted jumps, and flaming hoops and dubbed it a death trap. Both sides, however, agreed on one thing: this event was going to be unforgettable. T-Core Valaris stood near the main console, a permanent scowl etched into his features. The mechs were lined up at the starting line, their modified exteriors gleaming under the artificial sunlight. Inferno X1, Meteor Stride, Golden Comet, Phantom Surge, and Silver Vortex stood out like brightly colored, flame-spewing beacons amidst the more traditional alien mechs. T-Core tapped his claws against the console as he addressed the gathered crowd. This demonstration, he began, his voice amplified across the arena, is strictly for cultural exchange. No theatrics, no unnecessary risks, and absolutely no explosions. Yeah, we got it, Zara called out, waving dismissively from the cockpit of Inferno X1. She adjusted her headset and grinned at the cheering crowd. Among them were alien spectators holding up hastily made signs that read Inferno FTW and Golden Comet moonwalks my heart. Foam fingers, a human innovation, waggled enthusiastically in the air. T-Core pinched the bridge of his nose, or what passed for one, and muttered something about retiring early. The starting signal blared, a low hum that reverberated through the arena. Inferno X1 roared to life, its flamethrowers spewing neon-colored fire as Zara slammed the accelerator. "Yeet," she shouted, leaving a trail of smoke and awe-struck engineers in her wake. Meteor Stride was next, Ryder launching it off the first ramp with an enthusiastic whoop. Somehow, it managed to shed a cascade of dinosaur feathers mid-air, a feature Ryder had never fully explained. Physics is just a suggestion, he'd said when asked. Golden Comet took a more theatrical approach, moonwalking its way through the initial obstacle. The alien commentators were beside themselves, their normally reserved tones giving way to shrieks of disbelief. "It's walking." Backwards, one of them stammered. "Is that intentional?" Meanwhile, Phantom Surge decided that one path simply wasn't enough. Torque, grinning like a madman, activated its jump-enhanced hydraulics and sent the mech careening off course, flipping mid-air to land in a completely different lane. "Dab on EM," he shouted, and as if on cue, Phantom Surge executed a perfect dab mid-jump. T-Core let out a strangled cry of despair. Silver Vortex, ever the overachiever, took an entirely different approach. Its quantum duplicates blinked into existence, creating the illusion of three identical mechs racing simultaneously. The alien spectators gasped, their collective disbelief turning into frenzied applause. "This is not regulation," T-Core barked into the comms, but Torque's cheerful voice came through in response. "It's called innovation, Commander. Look it up." The racecourse itself was a masterpiece of danger and absurdity. Flaming hoops crackled with energy as mechs hurtled through them, some narrowly avoiding disaster while others embraced it with reckless abandon. Zara took a particularly sharp turn through a flaming hoop, Inferno X1 trailing fire like a comet. Style points, she quipped, flipping a switch to ignite the mech's undercarriage for extra flair. Meteor Stride launched into another gravity-assisted jump, this time soaring high enough to temporarily block one of the arena's cameras. Ryder's laughter echoed across the comms as he shouted, "Catch me if you can." Below, Torque was busy guiding Phantom Surge through a series of barrel rolls, much to the crowd's delight. The mech's ominous purple smoke added an air of mystery, and its binary whispers had become a fan-favorite feature. Golden Comet, not to be outdone, executed a flawless moonwalk across a narrow beam suspended high above the course. Flash leaned back in his cockpit, arms crossed, as if the maneuver required no effort at all. "Show off," Zara muttered, though her grin suggested she approved. The alien commentators were losing their composure entirely. It's dancing?" On a beam, one of them exclaimed, voice cracking. "How is this even possible?" The final lap was where the chaos truly reached its peak. Inferno X1, engulfed in neon flames, tore through the course with a speed that left scorch marks on the ground. Zara leaned forward, her eyes locked on the finish line. Meteor Stride, now shedding feathers at an alarming rate, attempted to overtake her with a well-timed jump. Ryder miscalculated, landing just shy of the lead and skidding into a bank of holographic barriers. Silver Vortex's quantum duplicates created a moment of utter confusion as they converged, each one vying for dominance. "Pick a lane," Will Ya, Zara shouted, narrowly avoiding a collision. Phantom Surge, still smoking and whispering ominously, performed a mid-air spin that defied every known law of physics. T-Core, watching from the sidelines, muttered, "This is a travesty." The crowd, however, was fully invested. Foam fingers waved wildly in chants of "Drift It." Drift It filled the air. Zara took the challenge to heart. As the finish line loomed, she executed a daring move that would go down in galactic history. Inferno X1, flames roaring, entered a perfect 360-degree spin, drifting across the track while simultaneously performing a triple jump. The mech landed with a resounding crash, crossing the finish line by mere milliseconds. The arena erupted into chaos. Alien engineers fainted in unison, their delicate sensibilities overwhelmed by the spectacle. T-Core stood frozen, his expression a mix of shock and resignation. The humans, on the other hand, were already celebrating. Zara climbed out of her mech, arms raised in victory. And that, she declared, is how you drift a mech. Silver Vortex rearranged its circuits into a grinning face. Adding a cheerful congratulations, Ryder dusted himself off and joined the celebration, while Flash struck a dramatic pose for the cameras. Torque, ever the opportunist, began sketching plans for an even more ridiculous upgrade. As the spectators dispersed, the aliens couldn't stop talking about what they had just witnessed. The mech race, originally intended as a simple cultural exchange, had become a galaxy-wide phenomenon. For better or worse, humanity had left its mark. Zara glanced back at the track, her grin widening. Same time next week, she asked, already plotting her next move. T-Core groaned, quietly updating his resignation letter. The aftermath of the race was nothing short of pandemonium. The Alien Council convened in a hastily organized emergency meeting, their usual air of composed diplomacy completely shattered. T-Core Valaris sat at the center of the chamber, his claws clutching the edges of the table as though it might somehow ground him in reality. The replay of the race played on a massive holographic screen above them, highlighting Inferno X1's final drift jump flamethrower maneuver. T-Core's antennae twitched violently as the scene looped for the third time. This was supposed to be a military demonstration, he growled, his voice strained. Not an intergalactic circus. Around him, the alien representatives murmured in agreement, though some of their expressions betrayed a certain reluctant awe. Vanessa Orcs sat beside him, her posture calm and composed, though her eyes sparkled with barely concealed amusement. To be fair, she said gently, it was an extraordinary show of engineering and cultural exchange. T-Core shot her a glare that could have melted Durasteel. Cultural exchange? They turned centuries of military tradition into a flaming, moonwalking, binary whispering spectacle. The spectators loved it, Vanessa pointed out, gesturing to the growing crowd still gathered outside the arena. Cheers and chants of "Drift It Again" echoed faintly through the chamber walls. You can't deny the popularity. They're already calling it the birth of galactic mech racing. T-Core buried his face in his claws. I'll never live this down. But the consequences of the humans' chaotic ingenuity were already spiraling beyond anyone's control. Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Alien engineers, inspired or perhaps corrupted by the humans' antics, were adapting their own mechs for racing. The hive mind, a collective species known for its unnervingly synchronized behavior, had reportedly designed a psychic nitrous system that allowed its pilots to achieve near instantaneous acceleration. The Drave X, a reptilian race with a love for all things competitive, had begun outfitting their mechs with plasma whips and neon scales. T-Core groaned audibly when he received an official notice from the Coalition's leadership. Against all odds, and much to his personal horror, he had been promoted to oversee the newly established Galactic Mech Racing Academy. The irony was not lost on him. I'm being punished for their insanity, he muttered as he signed the acceptance letter. This is a travesty. Meanwhile, the humans were basking in their victory. Torque, ever the opportunist, had already submitted a paper titled Quantum Drift and How to Break the Universe for Fun. The academic community was in uproar, half of them condemning it as scientific heresy and the other half clamoring for more details. Silver Vortex had become something of a celebrity, its cheerful smiley face circuit pattern appearing on everything from holocards to plush toys. Flash Carter had been approached by an alien media network to star in a reality show tentatively titled Dancing with the Mechs, while Ryder Morgan was fielding sponsorship offers from companies eager to cash in on his daring hydraulic stunts. Zara, of course, was at the center of it all, grinning like she'd just pulled off the greatest heist in history. The human delegation, emboldened by their success, wasted no time proposing their next big idea. Monster truck rally, Zara announced at the follow-up meeting, her enthusiasm undimmed. but with terraforming equipment. Imagine the jumps, the flips, the giant wheels crushing boulders. It'll be epic. T-Core didn't even look up from his datapad. I'm updating my will, he said flatly, and I'm naming you all as my executioners. The galaxy, however, was fully aboard the mech racing craze. New arenas were being constructed on every major planet, each one more elaborate than the last. Courses featured zero-gravity sections, lava rivers, and even one track that looped around the rings of a gas giant. Spectator numbers soared, and mech customization became a booming industry. Engineers who once prided themselves on precision and restraint were now experimenting with glowing paint jobs, oversized spoilers, and engines that roared like thunder. Even the Coalition itself couldn't ignore the phenomenon. What had started as a chaotic anomaly had evolved into a unifying force, drawing together species that had previously been at odds. Diplomats spoke of mechanized harmony as they exchanged tips on turbo boosters and drift techniques. Vanessa, for her part, was quietly proud. Humanity had brought the galaxy together in a way no one could have predicted. Zara watched it all unfold from the cockpit of Inferno X1, her signature grin firmly in place. The mech's new upgrades gleamed in the sunlight, a testament to humanity's relentless creativity. Around her, the galaxy buzzed with excitement, its inhabitants eager to embrace the madness. As she powered up her mech for another demonstration, she leaned back in her seat, letting the engine's purr fill the silence. The crowd roared as she guided Inferno X1 to the starting line, ready to show off the latest round of modifications. Yeah, she said to no one in particular, a mischievous glint in her eye. But can it barrel roll?